are starting a new series on It's Complicated, which describes a lot of our relationships. And a theme that we see throughout the Bible, from the Old Testament all the way through, is about a relationship, a primary relationship between God and us. And God desires that relationship, that we would know Him and understand Him, so much so that Jesus came as our Messiah, gave His life, which we just celebrated and honored during communion, to realize the price that was paid so we could have a relationship with Him. And out of that relationship, He wants us to have relationships with each other. Philippians chapter 2, verse 5 is kind of a theme verse we'll use. It says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset of Jesus Christ. In that passage, beforehand, it talks about how to have relationships with each other, has this mindset of Jesus, and it describes what Jesus did for us. He gave Himself for us. So the basis of our study, we're going to use some works by Dr. John Van Epp and his daughter, Dr. Morgan Cutliff. They're phenomenal people. They both have their PhD in psychology and counseling. They've had practice. He's had a practice for over 25 years. He was a former pastor. They understand relationships and difficulty. Their teachings, their principles have been taught in 50 states and in 10 different countries, and it works. They've written 2 books. One of them has a very unique title, How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk. Some of you may say a jerk-ass, I don't know, but that's one book. We encourage you to get it. Another one is written primarily for married couples. It says, Becoming Better Together. Realizing that relationships are tough and they need investment. They need to build into them. Also, what we're doing in our life groups. These two, John and Dr. Morgan, have prepared videos that we're using in each week in our life groups where we talk about these relationships. How do we build in a healthy way? Because we all need help. We all need working and growing together in these. And so our life groups are going to be doing this. We're going to be doing what they call the relationship attachment model. How do we grow in our attachments in a way that's godly? And I'm excited because it will improve any relationship. It's not just a series for married people. This is a series for anybody with a relationship. That means everybody in this room, everybody watching online, everybody in the chapel. We're connecting with other people. And how do we do it in a way that's healthy? I'm excited that our students are also doing this in their life groups for the next couple months, and our children's ministry is involved as well. And children's ministry, they've got some great things going this morning. If your children are over there, they're going to have fun. They're learning this. If you're watching online or in the chapel, I encourage you to watch the children's ministry teachings online available to you. It's just available for parents only. But it's fun, it's engaging. I watched it last night, what they're doing today, and it's good. So parents, you watch it with your kids. Help them to understand how to have healthy relationships even as a child. So this is the model that we're doing. This is the relationship attachment model that the doctors have put together for us. And it walks through and says, this is kind of, these are sliders. They go up and down, kind of like your sound bar. So some of you, if you think about your sound bar, you want how much treble you want. A lot of treble, not, maybe volume or your bass. Some of you put your bass way up really high. I like it there. Some of you down lower. And then you get the volume switch. Some of you are like, up here's your volume. Some are at the bottom, and then we could get in an argument over that today probably. But your volume switch, so it's that. So if we're looking at our relationships, they slide up and down. In a marriage, they go up and down. You know each other really well, but we go through different phases where you're going through, and we change, we shift, and we wonder where it's at. Where are you at now? And each one of our marriages can be tweaked. In fact, all relationships leak. You may start out really strong in your relationship, and then you kind of drift as we go through life. So an example as a parent, you have a new baby, you give everything to that baby, the baby's 5 years old, and you know that little baby, everything about them. You know their sleeping, their wants, their desires, their cries. You know so much about that baby. You say, how do I know this? Well, man, I know this 5-year-old like this well. Then a few years pass, and they become a teenager. And sometimes parents look at their teenager and go, I don't even know you. Who are you anyway that's moved into this body? And the kids are thinking, who are you as a parent? And we can just walk through and say, I don't know, it's just messed up and it's what is, or we can say, I knew my 5-year-old, now I need to get to know my 15-year-old. It's called communication and talking and investing and learning and be able to grow that relationship with your child. And how these work. So know is what it's built upon. We're going to be talking about this today. You need to know a person before you can have a strong relationship with them. See, you have to know the person before you can really trust him. You throw a lot of trust in someone you don't know, you can have a great deal of hurt and pain in your life. And after you know this person, then this rely thing. How well can you rely on someone? Well, it depends on how well you know them. And are they trustworthy? If they're trustworthy, then you can say, I can rely to that person. And then can I make a commitment? Well, if you know them, you trust them, then you say, yes, I can be committed to you. Trouble is sometimes we make a commitment to someone before we even know who they are. And we walk out with a hurt and a pain and a broken heart because we've given it too soon. And touch is that physical expression of the emotion, and it's best if it follows knowing and trusting that person. Now, I've done a lot of weddings. I love doing weddings. I've married several of you in this room, and one of the things we do, when we talk about relationships and marriage, we say, we go walk through the vows, the commitments there. One of those commitments says, for better or for worse. So we say, there's gonna be good days, there's gonna be some tough days, and occasionally you get that premarital couple that says, no, not us. We've got this down. There's not gonna be hard days. They go, well, there's phases of life, there's difficulties. They'll say, no, we've got this. And they're saying, we know each other well. I mean, we trust each other implicitly. We can rely on each other. We're committed to each other, and we know this is not going to be any problem for us at all. And they say, we've got to have this kind of a marriage. You know, I say, you know what you're talking about because you want that kind of goals going into it. But you're not going to live on this a whole lot. It's going to go up and down. Let's say the same couple who's so idealistic, everything's going to be great, they have a baby, and a couple months into it, the baby hasn't learned this word called sleep at all. And she's up with this baby, and dad is in the other room snoring away, and she's a little frustrated. She goes, you know, I don't know him nearly as well as I thought I did. Because I thought he would be in this with me. And I don't know that I trust him as much as I thought I did. Because he said he was going to do this with me at all. And rely? Obviously, I can't rely on him for anything right now. Not in this area, but you wonder the others. And commitment, I don't know how much I can be committed to him anymore. And touch, that ain't going to happen. It's just done. It's just over with. And he's wondering, hey, what's going on here? Because we change, we slide, depending on the circumstances around us, those relationships shift. It makes sense? So for married people, you say, oh, I've been married for a long time. I'm good with this. No, you've been married a long time. We all need to tweak. There's something in every one of ours that we need to grow in this, at this phase, at this stage of life. Singles, if you're dating, before you jump into this over here, you need to start this. Do you know this person? It takes some time to invest and know if you can really rely on them or not. Because sometimes when we say, I trust you fully, you're going to find out, whoa, I didn't even know this person. And vice versa. You can rely on someone you don't really know where they're at. And this stage of life where we're in so much need with the COVID stuff, we've been separated. Maybe you've been working from home and I just need some relationships. Or students, maybe you're at home and you say, I haven't been around my friends all summer and I just need some friends. And someone comes in your life, you go, I like them, they're fun. And so you immediately jump on and you build this strong relationship, but you don't really know that person. It can leave you with a brokenness and a hurt and a pain. We can jump into these others beforehand. It seems like in our dating relationships in our culture now, people jump into this full and strong and they go all the way with it. And they're bonding together. And the Bible says that in a marriage relationship, that when sex comes together, it's a bonding of two people together. Sometimes we're bonding with people that we don't even know if we can trust them to begin with. It's almost guaranteed to be pain and hurt in our life. So we're going to walk through this model. How do we do it in a way that's healthy? John 10:10, Jesus said of Satan, he said, he has come to steal, kill, and destroy. And Satan wants to destroy relationships. He wants to destroy marriage. He wants to destroy friendships. He wants to destroy something that's good, and we don't have to let him do that. We can walk through this in a healthy way. So some things we're going to look at. First on this know, this week. Next week we'll start trust, and we'll just walk through these. But to know someone, we need to invest time. You've got to invest the time with them. You've got to build this relationship. You've got to get to know them. It's important to have an extended friendship before you make a commitment to them, to know, is this someone I can really commit my life to? Some things, how do they handle money? How do they do with kids? What is their family like? What's their background? How do they act around other people? And what is their temperament? What is their breaking point? Before you jump into a relationship, before you go into business with someone, before you invite someone to be your roommate and join in sharing, are they going to be responsible to pay their part of the rent? What is their blow-ups like when they're at the end of their rope? And most importantly in a relationship, what is their relationship with God? What is their relationship with Jesus? How strong is it? More than just what you see on a Sunday, But what is their dependence upon Christ? How do they live out their faith? A study that was done is called the 90-day rule. And the study said this: about half of all dating attraction is significantly altered by some newly found characteristic within a 3-month period. This study showed that as they looked at these couples, half of them broke up that relationship over the period of time because they learned there was something about them that they didn't know when they began. That makes sense. Learning to know the person. Before you commit, before you rely upon them, make sure you get to know them well. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7 talks about how God looks at us. It says, the Lord does not look at the things that people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So when you look at someone around you, we size them up by their looks, by their appearance, by their mannerisms, but God knows their heart. And we have to get beyond the surface level. We have to get beyond the Facebook knowing someone and find out, who are they really? Who is this person? And do it as a discovery time, not as a way of skepticism, but learning who this person is. How do I get to know them? And in relationships, sometimes people will go, I just don't share my feelings. This is not who I am. Well, if you're going to have a committed relationship, if you're going to go into marriage, you have to share your feelings. You have to be able to share your thoughts. That's what marriage is about, sharing a covenant relationship. Maybe those issues in your marriage, the issues in your relationship aren't the other person, they might be yours. Maybe you take some time to sit back. We all need to have good counsel sometimes in our life. Maybe you need to go and say, God, what do I need to do? And ask someone to speak into your life and help you grow in that. Figure out what it is. Talk a lot. Ask, what are your goals for the next 10 years? What are your goals for yourself? What is your family dreams? What is your just aspirations, what you would love to be able to do? And what is your spiritual life like? How much do you love Jesus? Someone says they're a Christian, but they never, ever talk about Jesus. They don't demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit. Learn, question. We've got a couple in our church. They were in the last service. The Merrills have been married 70 years. Ben and Pat Merrill, they're phenomenal to be around. They're joyful, they're fun, they're truly in love with each other. There's sometimes people have been married a long time, they act like roommates and barely get along at that. These two are in love with each other, and they are still fascinating to learn about each other. You need to put some good mentors in your life. You need to find how in the long haul of a relationship do we continue to get to know each other. 3 most important things in a relationship are communication, and you got it. Keep learning, keep talking. The average couple talks 20 minutes a day. However, the average person in the United States watches 4 to 5 hours of television or social media a day. Sometimes you just take that phone and just turn it off. Now, cell phones are wonderful devices, but you need to shut it off sometimes and say, I need to get to know you. Jean and I went out to eat a while back, and it was pre-COVID days when you could go out to eat. And we were sitting at a restaurant, and when we go out to eat, that's our time to talk. And the rule is no phones. It's Jean's rule, and I obey. We follow. No, we engage it. So there's no phones when we talk. This other family came in, sat right across from us, and it was just unique. They sat down, and immediately all 4 of them had their phones out, and they were doing their thing, and I thought, put your phones down and talk a little bit. But they just kept going on, and the server came, and they made their order. They just kept going at it, and the food came. I thought, they'll put them down now, but guess what? The food came, and they just kept right at it. I think they were probably texting each other, But they never put their phones down the entire meal. There was no conversation at all. And sometimes we do that in front of other people, but that's sad when that happens at home. Sometimes your house can look like this, where even the small kids, you just got your gadgets, you just can't put them down, you just can't stop. And it's sad because our families are doing this and living this way, and marriages are doing this. You're not growing together, and to be careful because it can even lead to this, which is pretty a sad thing. We're not connected as we should be. And I'm speaking to myself as well. Some of you are really mad at me right now saying, Doyle, just stop talking about this. Well, it's true, and we all need to hear it. We need to put these things down, and we need to figure out how to do it. Now, for those of you in the room today, we have a gift for you. We've spared no expense in buying you a phone bag. See how nice this is? And so the idea of a phone bag is you get it out at mealtime, you pass it around, everybody puts your phone in it, turn it off first, because if a phone rings during the meal, you're going to fight each other for the bag. Turn your phone off, put it in the bag, pass it around, and you set the bag on the table. Now, sorry, if you're not in the room, you don't get one of these. We could mail one, but the postage would cost more than the bag, so we're not going to do that. But something you could do is you can pick up something like this, a sock. This is kind of a cool sock, don't you think? It's Coca-Cola. This was given to me by my friend Randy. And you can take a sock, preferably a clean sock. Don't have dad take one off at the table. That's kind of gross. But have a clean sock, and you say, okay, everybody, turn your phone off, drop it in the sock. And you pass it around and put it there. Moms, I'm going to ask you to do this because dad's probably going to conveniently forget about this at this point. All right? So you put the bag in your purse and you go out to eat or take a sock. Put your phones in there, turn it off, and put it down on the table and look at each other and talk. Wouldn't that be a phenomenal idea? Just communicate. Kind of set some boundaries. This is no phone time, that we can just look at each other and talk and join together and understand each other. Where there is no communication, the relationship dies. That works with friends. You can be the best of friends, but if you drift apart, not talk anymore, that relationship's hurt. It happens in your families. You can be a strong family, but you get divided up and switched and running so busy and fast, relationship hurts. It happens in marriages, and it happens in your relationship with God as well. You may be so in love with God, but if you don't nurture that, if you don't spend time praying, reading His Word, your relationship with God can be drifted as well. He's not going anywhere, but we do. A study showed that 40 out of 55 families that are eating at fast food restaurants are disturbed by the phones. Someone is involved in the phone when they're sitting there together talking, and guess who the culprit is? It's the parents, primarily. And the same study showed that when the kids asked their parents a question, the parents usually scolded them and told them to be quiet because they were busy at the time. We need to put our phones down. Can I get an amen? We just need to stop and say, do I know the people around me? Am I taking the opportunity to grow and learn and get to know them? Sometimes we need to skip some social events or we need to skip some sports events and just learn who people are around me. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33, and this talking about marriage and relationships, he gets to the point, he summarizes all of his teaching, verse 33, he says, each one of you must love his wife as himself, and the wife must respect her husband. The late Aretha Franklin wrote or sang a song. It was called R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Some of you know that. You kids have no clue what that song's about, but it's a great song. And that song, that R-E-S-P-E-C, by the way, that spells respect. Thank you for helping out there. It spells respect. And when she sang that song, it was kind of a battle cry for women. Show some respect to women. But actually, that song was written by a man. Otis Redding wrote the song. So R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what that means to me. Here's this man writing the song saying, would you please just listen to me, show me some respect. Well, obviously his girlfriend didn't get it because the next song he wrote was sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. But we need respect in a marriage. And so that verse is saying, wife, respect your husband. So I got an assignment for you. And this is, the couples that I've married, this is the assignment I give you when I marry you. I say, every day, wife, you find some way to tell your husband that you respect him. And that may be a weird phrase for you, but you can find a way that you believe in him. And you think of it, that's a big task. So 2 or 3 times this week, think of, what is it that I respect about him and I need to let him know? Just think of that. Just say, hey, I want you to know I respect this about you. I believe this about you. And don't expect a huge conversation to open up because he won't know what to say about that. But just say it, smile, and go on and let him know that you believe in him. Because guess what? Every man is a little insecure and they need to know that you believe in him. Now you're going to say, well, Doyle, he's going to say, well, that's weird. You're just doing it because Doyle said to. Well, he don't care. He'll be so thrilled that you said it. Just tell him you believe in him. And guys, tell your wife you love her. I tell the couples I marry, you tell her every day you love her. Now, you may say, my family doesn't do that. We don't say that. Well, big deal. Grow up, humble yourself, and learn to say it. It's not that hard. Let's practice. Say, I love you. That's really hard, isn't it? Come on, guys. Spit it out here. Try it again. I love you. Now, sometimes you may go, I love you. But I don't care. Just get it out there one way or the other. But say, I love you, and then express that. There should never be a day go by that she wonders, do you love her or not? You express it. So you find a way to be proud of her in public. Notice her, hold her hand, walk with her. Don't quit holding hands. I don't care how old you are. Someday she's going to be holding you up, holding hands, right? But just express that love towards one another. We can do this. Respect and love and get to know the people around you. All right, a couple more things. To know someone, we need to interact in diverse experiences. Recognize who they are in different settings. Sometimes in high school, you become best friends with someone. You go, we're the best friends. You're going to go to the same college. We're going to be roommates. It's going to be great. And you become roommates in college, and a month in, you can hardly stand each other. You're ready to kill each other because he's annoying, or I didn't know she had that habit. And it's one thing to be in school and be friends this setting, but to put in a different circumstance, it all changes. It happens in all relationships. Sometimes we just go through the same motions. We'll go out to eat, we'll go to the movie, we'll go home and go, everything's great, this is wonderful, we get along so well, but you don't really know each other. Or maybe you just get in a routine of life and you're just doing the same things, and break out of the routine. Go take a walk together and talk and learn about each other. What are they like under stress? What are they like as a family? Maybe you're just dating, figuring out, you need to go visit them with their family and find out, man, he's just a mama's boy all the way through, or she's spoiled rotten, and a spoiled girl and a mama's boy is going to have a huge effect on relationships going forward. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be understood. Mark chapter 6, verse 30 says, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported him all that they had done and taught. And then because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, Jesus said, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. And we see Jesus doing that often. He got away from all the people. And here he says, come on, friends, let's get away from all the people. Let's get over here and just have some downtime. And in those times is when he built relationship with his closest of friends. Sometimes you just need to get away from the phone. You need to get away from the social media. You need to get away from the sports. Get away from those demands. You just need to say no to something else so you can have time with the person you're building a relationship with your family. And lastly, identity comes from knowing Jesus. Do you know who Jesus is? Do you know that he loves you so much? Do you know that he's given his life for you? Do you know that he loves you just as you are, and he sees what you can be, and he puts so much into you? And we need to recognize who we are in Jesus before we expect the other person to fulfill the needs that I have. Realize my relationship with Jesus comes first. My identity needs to be found in him. And something you can do, and it builds a whole lot of intimacy, is praying together. And it's awkward, it's weird, but when you sit down and you just pray together, it doesn't have to be this huge, long, elaborate, but just pray a simple prayer together. It breaks down pride. It breaks down this image around you. You become vulnerable. And it can be done simple, but just say, let's pray together once in a while. In marriage, families, friends, we come together and say, God, we need you in our life. Sometimes our prayer is, I'm a little frustrated, a little miffed about something, and Jean will say, we need to pray. And I go, I don't want to pray. She goes, you need to pray. It's shocking for you to hear me say this. She goes, we need to pray. And I go, okay, you pray. She goes, you're praying. You need to pray right now. You know, something about when you're praying, when you're really frustrated, you have to change because you're talking to God. We need to do that. John chapter 10, verse 14. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for my sheep. Jesus knows you, and he loves you. And he wants to give everything to you. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 19, it's a prayer. It says, to know this love that surpasses knowledge. Do you really want to know God's love? That you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. To know his love for you. And let his love fill your life. Don't have to rely on somebody else to give you all those needs. It comes first from God, and then you share that together. And that verse we started with, Philippians 2:5. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset of Jesus. Can you in your marriage, your dating, your friends, your business life, can you have the attitude of Jesus in reaching out? You don't have to fail at relationships. You don't have to have this pain and be hurt over and over again. So we're going to walk through this model. How do we do it? First, by knowing God and by getting to know the person around you and getting to know them again and again and again and growing in it. But it starts by following Jesus. And I thank you for the teaching of your word and how much you know us, but you still love us. And thank you for speaking into our lives, for giving us your word. And Father, I ask that you would move in our hearts and help us to understand your love for us. And Father, would you help us to understand how to take your love and your grace and truly give that to people around us. Help us to have a little patience and thought before we jump into a relationship, before we really know them, but we can truly build it in the right way. Father, I pray that you'd help people today. There's some that are in a relationship that they wish they weren't in because they started too fast or they didn't know the other person. I pray that you give them grace and strength. Father, for others, we're anxious because we want to be someplace where we're not, and help us to trust you and walk with you. And Father, for people in those relationships that need some help, that we just humble ourselves and ask for your mercy. And we do the work to grow. Father, I pray that you speak to us, remind us of your love and your grace today. In Jesus, I pray.